Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Gary James. I shall be the host for today's webinar. Um, we're just going to give it a few minutes. We've got a number of attendees coming onto the line, so if you just give us maybe another minute or two, give everyone a chance to come on, then we shall commence. Okay, well, welcome everyone. As I say, my name is Gary James, and I shall be the host for today's Capgemini webinar. On the 20th of September, US President Joe Biden announced that the COVID-19 pandemic was over in the US, even though there's still a lot of work taking place reacting to it. It's clearly great news, as those even at the highest levels are recognizing that we're in a post-pandemic world. Within the area of enterprise IT, we've seen a seismic shift across the market in how our clients are working and responding to the ramifications of the last 2.5. Changes in the ways of working and locations have impacted at the heart of our clients, and changes in our clients' customers' requirements has meant new business opportunities are arising for innovative business models and business processes that would help the most agile react better in the pandemic world. Now, the phrase new normal is often used, and it's becoming a bit of a cliche as time passes. But I think we can all recognize that whilst normal is different for each of us, it provides opportunities for ourselves and our clients if we're able to respond to that. After this webinar, Capgemini with Everest will be releasing our thought leadership paper in order to drive a conversation around digital success models for the next normal. Today we start that conversation. With me, I have Alicia Mittal, Vice President at Everest Group and lead author of the paper. I also have with me David Aline, Vice President at Capgemini, leading our European Centre for Excellence for ADM, which is Application Development and Maintenance Services. So welcome to you both. Now, to allow the audience to engage in the conversation, please include any questions in the Q&A window, and we shall cover these during the Q&A session. Any that can't be addressed within the time that we have, we'll actually respond and circulate to later. Also, we would like some of your views on some of the points, and so we're going to be running a survey. In order to ensure we do that effectively, could you please log on to, using your mobile phones or your laptops, www.menti, which is menti.com. So that's www.menti.com. And at the time of the survey, we'll actually give you the code then. Okay, so without further ado, Alicia, maybe you could start by giving us an overview of the key findings that we'll be including in the paper in due course. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Gary, and thank you for inviting me to share perspectives from the paper in this webinar. And you set the context very well, right? COVID-19 was an unprecedented event that pretty much changed the way enterprises operate, right? Including changes in the end customers' preferences, all the way to changes in the way they engage with their workforce, right? And it brought about changes to their mindset. It brought about changes in their preferences at an enterprise level. And we see these largely panning out in two broad ways. It created that need for agility to be able to adapt quickly to the evolving ecosystem, be it the changing customer needs, the macroeconomic situations, the sudden supply chain disruptions, or talent limitations, and so on and so forth. The second thing that it did, all of these events was it infused a sense of urgency for automation to achieve higher levels of productivity. And as we hear these, and think about the ecosystem of today, it seems to be throwing the similar challenges towards enterprises all over again, right? Even though we are in the post-pandemic world, the macroeconomic uncertainties is putting a lot of pressure on the enterprise growth. The rising inflation is slowly getting reflected in customers' preferences and choices. And global uncertainties overall is putting long-term plans of enterprises in doldrums. So while the pandemic-led recession and the economic slowdown now are very different in nature and form, one very common thread is emerging, which is technology is being used as a backbone to sail through the storm. Almost every enterprise that we speak to, they consider technology now as a redeemer, be it in the form of pivoting to newer digital-based revenue streams or adopting automation to infuse efficiency into their overall systems, or say using data to become more customer-centric and whatnot. Technology is now becoming the core and fundamental to enterprise growth strategy, as we see most of the enterprises now thinking about how to swim through these difficult times. Now, if we take a step back and think, what are some of the fundamental enterprise strategies in such situations that is driving tech investments? Now, we did some research and as part of the paper to uncover these strategies, we arrived at 4 key themes and we call them 4 Rs. They are, as you see on the screen, resiliency, responsiveness, reliability, and receptivity. Let me talk about each of them a bit. So when we say resiliency, from a business priority, enterprises are trying to be more resilient in the sense they're trying to strengthen their core so that they are more sustainable. They are becoming a more sustainable organization. From a technology standpoint, what that means is enterprises are building a very strong IT foundation by digitalizing their backend processes and their systems that power the entire organization. Initiatives like cloudification or modernization, as you said, these are some of the things that we are witnessing pick pace very, very rapidly. It started in the early part of 2020 when enterprises were suddenly hit with the COVID waves, and they had to suddenly pivot. And it is continuing to gain momentum for enterprises as they are identifying more opportunities to strengthen their core. And as per our survey as well, almost 3 out of 4 enterprises, they want to eliminate wasteful process so that the core on which they base their entire operations is much more stronger. So that's about being resilient. The second one is being responsive. Being responsive means being more nimble and agile. Now, agility and being nimble is something everybody faced a great deal of need for because suddenly their core operating principles had gone for a toss. They could not engage with the customers the way they used to. The workforce could not deliver work the way they used to. And just over the last 2 years, it's so interesting that nearly 90% of enterprises we surveyed say that they have adopted Agile in some shape or form. That's a huge, huge number if we think about any technology investment in just a matter of 2 years. So, as e-businesses are becoming more common for every industry and they are building new growth platforms based upon digital systems, agility of those systems is something that's becoming a core objective for a large number of enterprises. The third R that I want to talk about is reliability. Now, reliability, when I say, means building a secure organization and a responsible business. And this reliability is not just from a security standpoint. Of course, when you have digital proliferation, you are gathering customer data, you have to be secure and prevent yourself from any cyber attacks. But at the same time, enterprises are also getting very cautious of the fact that they have to project themselves and they have to convince their customers that they care about sustainability of the ecosystem. They are a reliable organization to engage with in a long-term basis. So that's something that's very unique that we are seeing over the recent few months and quarters. And last but not the least is the last R, which is receptivity. And this is actually the most important important strategy that almost every enterprise is now focusing on, which is from the perspective of being receptive to customer needs, focusing on stakeholder centricity. And when I say stakeholder here, it means customers, employees, partners, and even the broader society, being receptive to the needs and objectives of the entire ecosystem that they operate in. From a technology standpoint, what this means is there is meaningful investments that we are seeing in CRM systems, CDP platforms, or hyper personalization and data being used to enhance experience for the employees as well as for the customers. So all of these, like I said, are some of the technology-based initiatives that we are witnessing happen in the market, and technology is being considered as the key pivot around which the growth story is being woven. But any technology story is incomplete without talking about the outcomes of those investments, right? We had talked about investments happening in platforms and cyber systems, in modernization, cloudification. But let's also talk about the outcomes. And before I share the results of our research from the broader market that we track, let's ask our audience here to see what they have seen from the outcomes of these investments.
Okay,
Gary?
So on the next slide, we have some areas where organizations are going through the change that Alicia's talked about, and are looking at what outcomes to achieve. Now, we'd like to get the audience's perspective on what they think maybe some of these outcomes are. So we are going to run a poll. If I can now ask Lazar to take control of the screen and then walk us through the Menti system that hopefully everyone's attached to now, and the different questions that we have. Over to you, Lazar.
Thank you. My name is Lazar, and I will walk you through the voting process we have here. Please go to the www.menti.com and use the code in the corresponding box. You can access this link through any device you may have, laptop, computer, or phone. Once you have entered the code, you will be presented with 4 possibilities to choose from. You can choose one. Once you choose, the results will appear, as you can see, in real time live. We have about 1 minute for voting, and then I will switch to another question and it will appear automatically on your devices. So please feel free to vote, and once you're done, simply wait for the page to refresh itself. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that question. It's about insights, which is a kind of an interesting topic nowadays. Where do people see the kind of, or what percentage of enterprise leaders do believe are getting the insights from their applications? Now we can see there's 54 people on the attendees, so hopefully everyone's got the Menti system to work.
We can give another half a minute just in case for everyone to get a chance that wish to vote to vote.
The number of votes is still going up, Lazar, so on the left-hand side. Sorry, at the bottom right, I mean, not the left.
Yeah, I can see. We have about 17 at the moment for 21 and 50%, and we'll wait for 10 more seconds. And then we will switch for the next question. You don't have to do anything. The screen will refresh by itself within the Menti.com. Thank you for your answers. Now let's switch for the next question, which we will use the same 4 options. Regarding the percentage of enterprise leaders, do you believe file legacy and monolithic applications a major impediment to their application services? Choose one option. Thank you.
Okay, so we've changed the focus slightly on this question. Now, the first one being around the insights and the opportunities and whether people were, whether CIOs or decision makers were achieving the opportunities. This one's more about what's holding people back now, because one key element of achieving change, where in whichever way people want to do it, is what are the issues in doing that, and quite often the existing application or enterprise IT estate that is. I think I got the feeling, lads, that maybe people were having a bit of difficulty getting into the Menti in the first one. We've got more faster responses this time.
The Menti is meant as a tool to easily vote. However, it's normal to have a little bit of an issue at the beginning until you figure out the system. So, and I'm happy to see that people are slowly getting used to it. Let's have 20 more seconds, just in case, for everybody to get a chance to vote. And I think we are ready to move on to the final question, third one. As for the second question, it'll refresh by itself on your device, so you don't have to do anything. And here's the third. Choose one of the 4 options.
Okay, potentially the killer question here in relation to how many companies or many organizations believe they've actually achieved value from the digital transformation. Part of that question is what people's perception of digital transformation initiatives are. So maybe as we see, we're getting a bit more of a spread of answers on this one. It's definitely a different type of graph or structure of a graph, Alicia. This one, bit more balanced, bit wider distribution.
Yeah, I agree. I think the point being, how do you define value?
Yeah,
That may be different for different individuals.
and maybe how do you define digital transformation as well?
Absolutely.
Quite extensive nowadays.
Looking at the spread, let's give it another 20 seconds for everyone to have a chance to vote, and then we can close off the voting.
I think we know the winner here as well.
There's a winner.
Yeah, less than 20%.
17 people might be expecting a prize. People may be changing their votes now if they think.
And I think we are done. You can take over the control. These are the results that we have gotten from our audience. Let's show them what we have found out.
Okay, well, thanks very much for everyone who was able to vote there. Alicia, some interesting statistics, but here are the actual figures that you, Everest Group, actually identified. So maybe you can take us through it, and then some other interesting aspects of the paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gary. And interestingly, a lot of these results that we got was largely in line with what we have got. What you see on the screen is not the active poll results, but it is the result of our broader research that we have done in Everest Group. And some of these questions are flipped, right? The first one was how many of them believe they are able to derive insights. Here it's on the other side, you're saying 78% believe they are unable to derive insight, but which is largely in sync with what people responded in the poll, wherein majority of the respondents mentioned that less than 50% of the enterprises have been able to derive meaningful insights. Similarly, monolithic being a major impediment was witnessed as an issue by as many as 50%, 75%, and a lot of respondents also said more than 75% of enterprises see this as a key impediment. And then from a value realization part, again, majority of the respondents believe that enterprises have not been able to realize the envisioned value, or less than 20% of enterprises have been able to realize the envisioned value. So, what exactly is happening here? So as we speak to our enterprise clients, there is obviously the similar feeling that we get, that there is a lot of investments that is happening, but the outcomes are nowhere to be seen, or, the extent of outcomes that is expected, it's much limited than what they anticipated. Now, the reason for some of these failures isn't really technology itself. It's actually about the lack of governance. It's a non-conducive culture. It's the change resistance in an organization and a lot of other things. So essentially, when we talk about technology initiative, it's technology is just one part of that investment. What goes along with it is the organization structure, the metrics to measure success. And as we were discussing, Gary, right, how do you define success and how do you define transformation can be very subjective in nature. The talent profile, the partner ecosystem, the governance model, the operating model, all of these elements of support function that surrounds a technology investment is what essentially defines the success or failure of any initiative. And as we spoke to more and more enterprise, what we realize is the real problem which most enterprises fail to acknowledge is when they undertake any point-based tech initiative, let's modernize something, let's adopt a platform for customer data management or, customer relationship management, etc. What they are really doing is they are working with a siloed break-fix mindset. This isn't setting them up for transformation, but it's only a short-term adaptation that they are doing, and they end up covering the problem with layers and layers of technology without building a conducive ecosystem around it, ecosystem of, like I said, governance, culture, the mindset, metrics to measure success, and so on and so forth. In contrast, enterprises essentially need to consider these downturns and these difficult situations like the ones we've been facing over the past 2 years as an opportunity to introduce a more holistic change. It needs to be an organization level intervention, something that can truly enable sustainable transformation. Now, I used a lot of heavy words like, right, organizational level intervention, sustainable transformation, holistic change, etc. It may sound aspirational and non-practical on the onset, but more and more enterprises are realizing it the hard way by failures or by limited value of a lot of investments that they have done. All of this is making them question their approach and making them look at things from a distance to analyze where they went wrong. And let me simplify it for you. We studied a lot of enterprises. Some of them have been successful and achieved their objectives. And like I said, the others are learning from their mistakes. What distinguish the better performers from the rest are two key interventions that the better performers are doing. Number one is these performers have a foundational mechanism to support digital adoption at scale. Essentially, it's a solution that democratizes innovation. The second thing that they are doing is their operating model is designed to support digital adoption at speed. Let's delve into each of these one by one. So talking about the first one, what is this innovation mechanism that is needed to enable digital at scale? This is essentially building a backbone for innovation in an organization, establishing a foundation for continuous improvement that is accessible for everyone in the organization, right? Innovation and continuous improvement inherently requires a lot of democratization, isn't it? So think of this as a foundational IT platform that allows easy access to capabilities, smooth and secure data flow, and easily connects with broader enterprise context. At the core of this, as you see in the diagram here, at the core of this IT platform should be certain basic assets that enable building of reusable components and capabilities. Say something that you see, automation toolkit, low-code capabilities, and so on and so forth. And around this code could be many capabilities that augment the functionality, efficiency, and efficacy of the system, like using AI-based systems, collaboration tools, etc. And of course, because this is a democratized platform accessible to everybody, there needs to be also a layer of security and governance at a centralized level. Now, as I speak, you might be thinking, what is this in the end? Is it just another IT investment that may or may not deliver the intended benefits? Not really. It's essentially, it's a platform for growth that supports mindset change in an organization. What it does is the implicit objective behind this platform is going to be to enable breakthrough value creation through incremental value addition across the organization. And this value addition in an incremental basis is being done by building a sustainable cutting edge innovation mechanism that being given as a tool for each and every employee to add to that innovation agenda. So that's the first part, right? Focusing on building an innovation structure and innovation mechanism. Let's talk about the second one, achieving digital transformation at speed. Now, this is where the organization's nature surfaces, the way people interact, the way they take the sense of ownership of the initiatives they are working on, and the responsibility they carry for the transformation of not just their business, but also for the entire organization. And all of this contributes towards the speed at which the organization can transform. There's a famous quote that says, if you need people to think differently, you have to change the way they work, right? Traditionally, in most of the organizations, a horizontal IT function exists, and the core business team functions as a distinct unit with limited collaboration. As a result, business tries to derive value through ad hoc projects whenever the IT organization isn't available, leading to shadow IT, non-scalable innovation, and the adoption of technology in separate pockets across the organization. The ownership of such initiatives and funding, of course, is not very clear. So for meaningful technology changes to happen at speed, there is a pressing need to enable collaboration between business and IT. And it's not something that's new. Many large organizations have been realizing the benefit of this model and already transitioning to a product-centric operating model. The persistent product teams that are associated with the product from its inception to scaling can enable leverage of learnings and best practices from their past experience of managing the product. However, in addition to product team, we are witnessing some enterprises also invest in what we call an integrated DevOps factory. So this is what enables a rapid scaling up and down of these squad teams based upon the requirement of the product itself. The outcome obviously is shared ownership. It is better product outcomes with flexibility and scalability. So I've been speaking for quite some time. I'll wrap it up quickly, and to reiterate, focus on establishing a strong backbone supported by the softer elements of cultural change, the mindset change, as well as enabling collaboration as much as possible across the organization to support further innovation. So Gary, that is what are some of the very high level insights that we have from the paper. And, of course, this is at an aggregated level across a lot of enterprises that we speak to and research that we do at a global level. Your team and David, your team have been working extensively with a lot of enterprises. Maybe you would want to share certain examples to make things more real for the audience.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks for that insight, Alicia. Very interesting comment in the chat window. As I say, people will put their answers or their questions in there. And the comment is around, the analysis around value and the fact that, you know, the need to drive value was also a key thing in pre-COVID, which it was. But I think what we've seen in some of the reports that we've been observing is that, you know, many organizations are now seeing digital transformation as the way to get out of COVID and to react to new opportunities. So it's kind of even more important. So maybe if we can go to the next slide, and then David, maybe if I can call on you to maybe give our perspective, give Capgemini's perspective on some of these industry trends that we see and how, you know, we see our response to these customer challenges and trends.
Okay, it's a little bit a different angle from what was said by Alisha, but you will see exactly the same kind of objective for our customers that we can see. One of the things was around the reliability, and that's what we can see, in fact, at the bottom, which is around cost reduction, that we could call also value for money, but also the continuous improvement. So you really ensure that everything that you will do will have the proper resiliency, proper quality, and that whatever happens, it will be there, it will be resilient. You can count on it even if there is a storm. And we see storm coming. We have seen the COVID one. We have some war ongoing in Europe. We have some supply chain which are broken and so on. And our customers really want to have a strong reliability of their IT landscape, and they want their partners to take some commitment around that that resiliency, I would say. Around the innovation, one of the things that we see in our relationship with our customers is that they are quite demanding around that now, meaning that it's not just enough to deliver the quality of services. It's not enough to be the technological partner, but we need to bring also with us our innovation ecosystem. For us, it means that, for example, in all our large delivery, we put in place what we call a delivery innovation office, which is basically taking all innovation coming from the ground, coming from our people, and working for our customers, and being able to provide that to our customers on a regular manner, and giving an easy access to both our people and our customer to all that content that we are creating for them. And on top of that, one of the things which is very important for them is and for us, and to succeed there, is to have the right interconnection between us and their business stakeholder. We are insisting quite a lot to have that. And for example, we were discussing yesterday with a customer who is in the hospitality and entertainment business. And one of the things that helped us to provide really innovation and added value was the fact that they've decided to put in regular meeting every quarter, not only IT, not only the supplier, but also business people coming there to ensure that they can express that challenge and ask to us what are the kind of innovation we can bring to the table. That's about the, let's say, innovation side. And what you can see around second layer, it's very linked to the new operating model and the new tooling and the new way of working that have been put in place. I was answering in the chat box about what has changed post-pandemic or even during the pandemic. Well, Agile at Scale was existing before, but now we see a fantastic acceleration of Agile at Scale. So all customers are really moving there, not for everything, but for a large part of their IT landscape, because they know that they will need to face uncertainty. They need to be agile, they need to be flexible, not just in the method, but also in their capacity to change depending on the condition. And we see really that enormous shift to much more agile way of working. That's one. And another thing which is important for them is to take all the benefits they can from the existing application they have, from the legacy. We see in the in the poll that they are really not satisfied and that their legacy is a problem for them. And we see enormous change in moving to the cloud, modernizing application, so they can get the benefits coming from the functional value of those applications, but opening them to the world, being much more resilient, and being also able to use that application from very different access and so on and so forth.
Okay, so I think thank you both for your insights. I think the two different perspectives there on quite it was quite a complicated topic, quite many facets to it, and also quite a high priority now, based on the fact that many organizations are responding to what's happened in the market and looking at where their opportunities are and where their challenges are, as we talked about with regards to legacy. So thanks to everyone who has been putting questions within the live event Q&A window. We've got a couple that have already been responded to, so please take a look in the window there for the answers. We do have one now, though, and maybe, Alicia, if you could pick up this one, because it relates to some of the points that you were making in your very first slide. So, and I'll read it out verbatim here. The fundamentals of an enterprise strategy, the 4 R's, could create conflicting pressures. For example, resiliency versus responsiveness. I suppose this goes back to the issue with legacy IT of keeping the lights on and not changing. Based on that kind of tension, how do you believe clients should approach achieving a balance in that area?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. That's an interesting question and interesting way to think about it. However, honestly, I don't see them conflicting. In fact, I see these two objectives complementing each other. And I'll tell you how. So if you are responsive as an organization, you will automatically start becoming more resilient to changing environment. So resiliency isn't about, even the world around me shakes up, I don't have to change. I am so strong and so resilient that nothing requires changing. On the contrary, it means strengthening your core capabilities and fundamentals to the extent that changing business environment doesn't render it useless, doesn't render it as legacy. That is how the balance between resiliency and responsiveness is to be made. I hope that addressed the question.
Okay. Yeah. David, do you have any builds? Any comments on the balance between the conflicting pressures, resiliency or responsiveness? You're on mute.
Okay.
You have to put €5 in the pot for being the first person to where someone had to say you're on mute.
Okay, good. I will. Well, definitely this kind of paradox is something which is our day-to-day, kind of our bread and butter. It's really something that we have to handle at the same time. I mean, there is no, at any point, any conflict between the two. Could imagine, but it's not the case. How can you be responsive if you're not even resilient? Okay, so you won't even have the chance to adapt because everything is going to crash. So you need to have resiliency. That's really the first layer, which was a bit what I was saying, which is around the quality. That's where you create trust between supplier and customer, and you ensure that the service is always delivered, whatever happens. That's the first thing. And second, on top of that, so it's more something which goes with, is you create all the conditions that will allow you to be responsive, to be flexible, to be agile, and to, at the end, really deliver the value which is expected by the business and by the customer of the business. I'm fully aligned on the fact that you might think that there is a paradox, but there are none.
Okay. And maybe just as a follow-on question to that one, to your response there, David, is in relation to this transformation, what about the human aspects? You know, how should that change work?
There are different things. There are different things which are around human, but which is around also the challenge for organization. I mean, I was saying that the agile scale, the move to cloud, the change in the way of working is something that everybody sees. Where we see on some pitfall still is organizations that are launching massive agile program without the proper change management, which means keeping the same way to do things in terms of governance, keeping in place the same KPI, keeping in place the same control. That kind of transformation requires to also change the mindset, accept to have some people to give more autonomy to the people. Okay, so that requires in what we call lâcher prise in French. Don't know exactly the word in English, but it's let go.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to give some autonomy to the people to have a successful real agile transformation, and that's not very easy in many organizations where control are very strict and very important. On the other side, you still need to have those control. You still need to have an enterprise architecture, standards that we put in place that are respected, and custodian of that. So that's where things are sometimes complex to ensure that we'll have the proper control, release some of it, give the autonomy, and still have some rules that must be respected by everybody. It's really big change.
Yeah, and I think that what David's point there, Alicia, kind of relate to the final slide that you had. So is there anything you'd like to add to what David's just said?
Sure, absolutely, Gary. And I think I totally agree with what David mentioned. It's a complex problem to solve. It's a balance that has to be made between autonomy versus standardization. And it's not an easy thing to do. While enterprises, when they are moving to, say, an agile methodology, they may want to give a lot of autonomy to people. And that's what, apparently agile principles dictate. But a lot of times it gets misused because, developers believe that, oh, we can now function the way we want to, and they start operating in an ad hoc manner without documentation and a lot of other things. So it leads to a lot of chaos. So it needs to be balanced at an enterprise level as these digital initiatives scale. It needs to be very well balanced with standardization and industrialization of certain processes, certain governance structure, metrics, etc. So, and when we talk about change, we cannot eliminate a human factor out of it, right? When we're talking about organization and any change from a technology standpoint, there is definitely a human element involved. Like I was saying in the beginning, right? Technology is never a limitation. It's everything around it that creates the challenge. And that is where the human aspect comes into picture and the softer aspects of the operating model, which is how do you put the people together so that they can work in a more conducive manner, together contributing towards the organizational transformation.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've covered a lot of ground, and I think we've covered most of the questions now. There's one question left, which was really around the change going on in the market, and maybe what's happening from an ADM Next perspective, David. You covered a lot of ground in your slide. I wonder if there's just some final words to bring it back together before we close the call.
Well, we talked a lot about the business, the value for money and reliability, move to product way of working. Maybe two things or three things which are important in the new way to deliver ADM Next or ADM services. First, our customer require flexibility from us. They want to be more agile in the way they handle system. They want to be more agile in their organization. They are also asking us to be more agile. They need us to be their partner to face uncertainty. Second, we are talking more and more about continuous transformation. We still have some big bang ongoing, but most of our customers are engaged in a real continuous transformation, meaning I want to ensure I'm gaining the best possible value of what I already have, and I want to make it evolve. And that's where we see those massive move to cloud program, where once you have, let's say, put your application in the cloud, you're transforming it so you can really get the best value out of it, because you cannot just create some cloud native application. At some point, it will be too costly. And maybe last point, and it's a little bit related to the human things that we were discussing before. Our customers want to be much more engaged than in the past in the transformation, in the IT transformation they are doing. So they want not only be in charge of managing suppliers, managing contracts, and having some steering committees. They want in some places, which is important for them, where they feel it's strategic, they want to be part of the team themselves. They want to not only master the architecture, but maybe have some people that will be really inside development teams with the hands-on real development, coding, and so on, which is something that a lot of customers have stopped to do during years. And now they are, it can be sometimes integrating part of their IT landscape in their own organization, or really having hybrid team with their suppliers to ensure that they keep a very good control of things which are strategic for them and for the future.
Okay, well, I think we've had a very interesting 50 minutes. You know, we've covered a lot of ground and really looked in quite a bit of depth and the kind of the operating model that the customers need to focus on to really achieve success in digital transformation in what we're calling the next normal. It's still the case that many organizations are not successful with their initiatives, and I think it's recognized out there. The mechanism to do it, many and varied. I think the first thing that's maybe important to start with is some form of playbook. And I mentioned right at the start, you know, we're in the we're about to release that playbook that can help customers and the market at large to really achieve that digital success in the next normal. So I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance. I'd like to thank our two presenters or experts in the area. Thank you, Alicia from Everest Group, and thank you, David.
Thank you.
A lot of insightful commentary and some good responses to those questions. So wherever you are, have a good rest of the day, and please keep an eye out for our next webinar. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.